the Bitcoin mining stuff's a big play. Not for so much the Bitcoin stuff as the fact that they're just so much money is going towards that. They're buying like massive amount of land. Nobody understands how few places these can be, because you know those huge power substations, they have to be next to those, and they have to be next to ones that can do crazy amounts of power that you can't imagine.
Welcome back to Real Investing, where we talk about real investing for the everyday investor. I'm Tim Harridge here with my buddy Ryan Harper.
Howdy.
And one of the realists, Jawad Dashti. Jawad, thanks for being here, bud.
Hey,
You bought a strip center recently in Duncanville, DeSoto, something like that?
yeah, that's one of a few.
For like I don't know, like $250, I think you
Yeah,
said?
that was 250.
Talk about that deal.
So I saw it on Facebook. The guy was wanting 275. Everybody and their cousins said they wanted it, but everybody and their cousins said they're interested in it.
Drop their email address.
Yeah, or just said only the word interested. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna fast forward like 100 times past this, and I clicked the guy's thing. It said he owned a roofing company. I googled the roofing company. I called the guy, and I was like, I'll give you 250 cash right now, and he said deal, and locked it up, 100% occupied. Every tenant had been paying, and I did not I knew what it looked like. He only had one picture of the outside. I thought it was going to be the typical thing I get when I buy these junky little strip centers, but the inside was nice. Like, I was impressed.
I saw some of your pictures.
I was like, I'm pretty sure that I could sell this today for double, but I was pretty impressed because usually I got to go in there and clean up the insides at minimum, but they have AC, they have, all the cosmetic stuff done. I was tickled for once, because I always get surprises, but they're never good. So
I think there's two lessons there. One is like you got to move fast.
yeah,
And two, don't question. What is the don't look a gift horse in the mouth, or whatever that expression is. So if somebody's going to gift you something, an opportunity like that, don't obviously do diligence, but don't be like, oh my God, this is too good to be true, and walk away.
yeah.
So your first deal was a shitty condo on Skillman,
Well,
wasn't it?
in commercial,
No, residential.
no, in residential, my first flip was some house in the hood of Dallas, where I spent like 2.5 years doing it, and I had a full-time job, and then I'd get my paycheck, and I'd take like $50, go to Lowe's, buy 3 freaking tile.
Because you were a plumber, right?
Yeah. And I was like way over rehabbing too, so I spent too much. I was buying like the most expensive of everything. I'd buy these 3 tile, go there at like 11 o'clock at night, lay these 3 tile, go to work the next day. That took forever. I made 50 grand off of it, and I cried like a little girl when I made that money. But my first rental was also a house in Mesquite where I found it on Craigslist. And
Is that even still out there? Craigslist?
yeah, I just looked actually. I did look on there. I don't know.
Are there
what I
any
was looking
humans
for.
on it, or is it just all bots?
They charge you now, so I doubt it's bots. Yeah, it's like $5 to post on there.
Really?
Yeah, but I was like, oh man, Facebook Marketplace so much better. But that one was on Craigslist, and it was $39,000 for a house. The guy's parents died. He wouldn't respond to my 400 emails. It still stayed up there. There was no like contact information. I was born and raised in Mesquite. I was like, I can find this house, because every block, houses look different. I was like, I can find it. Sure enough, within 30 minutes, I found the house. I left a note. Guy hit me up, and he was like, not a single person's messaged me about this house. And I was like, maybe it's overpriced. And it was just, I don't know what he did wrong, because I emailed him myself probably 10 times.
Yeah. Dude put his email in wrong or something.
Yeah,
And didn't know how to use it.
I don't know what he did, but I ended up buying that house for nothing, and I didn't even know how to fill out a contract. Called a high school buddy of mine that was an agent, and I was like, hey, whatever you're doing, stop, come here right now, and I will pay you $2,500 to bring me a contract and show me how to fill it out. And he did, and I bought it. I didn't do any work to that at all, and I leased it for $1,280 on Section 8 within probably 30 days.
I thought you bought some of those stupid
I
condos
did.
on
That
8110 Skillman.
I did. That was
Remember
probably
that bullshit I got involved in, where the dude Fidel Jenkins was class action lawsuits, and Jason Ronnie ended up being the manager of it. Oh, it was a nightmare.
I owned a few of those. started buying those, I would say probably 2015,
Yeah.
late 2015. And I remember one of them was a 2-bed that I didn't know it at the time. I think I bought it from a wholesaler, probably New Western or something. But I paid 17 grand for a 2-bed out there. And then the 1-bed I paid 5 grand for.
Yeah.
Which I remember back like 2013, like when real estate was still crashed from '08. Somebody tried to sell me like 50 something of them for 100 grand.
Yeah.
And like now I would love to have those.
I know.
Back then, I only had 100 grand in my name. I thought about it, but I was scared.
I bought mine over there for like 8 grand. I ended up being the damn president of the freaking HOA. It was like just this complete time suck. I sold it on auction.com for like $25,000, and I was just like, somebody just bought some bullshit.
Yeah, I sold them and with a bunch of other condos I had all over DFW in 2016. I think I sold them for like 58,000 a piece. One of them I sold like burnt down 4 days afterwards.
Oh,
But it was because of the person upstairs. Nothing that I did. It's good timing.
I hope they had insurance.
You said good timing. That HOA never paid its insurance. You said good timing. You've been doing this, a couple decades now. How important is timing versus confidence versus just balls out risk?
Or
Like
luck.
I think it's 100% of all those at all times. I think I'm very lucky a lot, but I think I put myself in a position to be lucky a lot. I think it's always risky. I tell people all the time I could be bankrupt tomorrow, Trump could snap his fingers one time and we'd all be screwed.
Duke been snapping his fingers a lot lately.
Yeah, I just saw a thing
Like
today.
Thanos walking around like, just killing businesses and ideas.
I'm surprised I haven't seen like a Thanos Trump meme or anything.
Yeah, well, I saw a stat today that said that Miami was 68% Hispanic, and I was just starting to think about Cubans, Venezuelans, Mexicans, whatever is there. And Texas, they said it's 5% of the population in Texas is illegal. And I was wondering what that might be like in Miami and what it'd be like if all those people disappeared to the economy. Like no discussions about politics, like which is where people always try to turn it. I'm thinking pure economics. Like, what's that like?
Supply and demand of the labor force.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we were talking earlier, man. Like it's anyone that thinks that the Lord and Savior Donald Trump rode in on his white horse to fix things this year is horribly mistaken.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Even if he is or they are trying to fix something, you can't fix something or redo something without completely ripping it apart. It's just like flipping a house, You got a demo first.
It's got to become unlivable before
And
it becomes livable.
I feel like we're in the demo stage right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fun times ahead.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates, I'm happy where they're at. They're at least stable. They're not, yanking up and down or going up 400%. Property taxes are, like getting kicked in the teeth. Are you still only, are your holdings only in the DFW area? Or did you go into some other states or?
No, I'm not going to other states. I don't, especially with all the political stuff, I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Before I would have. I tried to buy a Burger King in Alabama like 3 years ago, and the broker was like, don't do it.
Yeah.
He was like, you don't want to be out here. But it was nothing. Like, and even if they were going dark, I still would have made my money in like 3 years. So.
Right.
And it was in a mall parking lot. But right now, I'm really just sticking to North Texas. Definitely don't want to go towards San Antonio area because that's highly migrant. I'm trying to find a word that's not going to make everybody mad.
We ain't worried about that.
And I'm really just trying to play it safe right now and not take. You can make big moves without big risk.
Yeah.
One of the things that Dalton was saying earlier is, and I haven't heard this before, and I really liked it. And he was saying that it used to be survive till 25, and now it's survive 25. I was like, that makes sense.
I actually didn't think that the past few years were that bad, but this year, I think a lot of people are feeling it. I always kind of ask people of different scales. Like, I'm not just gonna look at all my rich friends and be like, y'all doing good? Okay, everything's good. Like, the world doesn't, the economy is not running off of them. So,
Right.
a lot of people say they're hurting right now.
Well, one of the I was at an event last week, and I was talking about Robert Kaplan, and he was talking about how like if you're making $55,000 or lower, you're hurting, but the rich people, they're fine because they can stomach everything. But I mean, that just makes sense.
Well, until the stock market reflects the Main Street American, it's hard for a rich person to hurt. I mean, we're making 20-25% a year in equities. I mean, if you're just sitting in the S&P 500 in the last 4 years, you're up 100%. I mean, just means if you had $1 million and did nothing, you have $2 million. Like, it's not hard to be happy with that.
Mm-hmm. And if you have like family money, that like a family office where they just keep going and going and going.
Meanwhile, glad you have chickens, right? Because what is 50 cents? I saw your post today. 50 cents an egg for
Yes,
at Waffle
surplus
House.
charge. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of funny. We all joke about it, but 50 cents an egg hurts the average American. I mean, it's what I'm always trying to teach my kids, because we can swing through Chick-fil-A and it's like $20 for the 10 naked tenders and French fries and a lemonade, right? And I'm always trying to tell them, like, hey, not everyone eats like this.
yeah, and to add on top of that, I've got some relatives that make not minimum wage. They make $11 an hour, and they're bringing home after taxes and stuff $350 a week. And like, when you hear $11 an hour, you're like, oh, that's all right. And then you think $350 a week. And I'm like, we have definitely spent that on a lunch before. And I start thinking about, like, how can somebody survive on that? And that's not hating in any way.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's not, we're not in a space where that can be fair for people and people can live. But then is the argument, you raise the minimum wage even to $50 an hour, like they're going to immediately cut everybody, go AI robots and all that stuff. And I don't care what anybody says. I've seen robots that can do anything. I've seen them sheetrock, tape in bed, tie rebar.
Lay brick.
I've seen it all. I've seen ones that do shingles on roofs. So it's like just drives around on Caterpillar wheels and pops them down and shoots them. So,
I mean, hey, how many freaking McDonald's now does it say go to the kiosk?
yeah.
You go into New York City to the McDonald's, there's 4 kiosks. When you walk in, that you order there, you go pick your food up from the counter and you get your ass out. Like,
I could see even retail going that route. I mean, because you got to think if you go the kiosk route, well, then you're gonna have loss prevention. Okay, well, how do you prevent loss prevention? Well, don't even give them access to the stuff. You go there, put in your order, and maybe like an Amazon type cart goes down and gets everything. It's like, hey, here's your stuff.
how rents? Everybody, there's a lot of reposters out there that just DFW's growing like crazy. Rent growth is up this year. Rent growth may be up, but existing in-place rents in most locations is not up. I know you own some multifamily.
Yeah.
What's your feel on that?
So multifamily rents are down.
Yep.
And I really saw that coming because people are tapped out. They've been tapped out. And then you tripled the price of everything. So that's why I very quickly made a decision that I didn't want to be in residential anymore. One, because I love what I do when I fix up houses. I love to contribute to society. I don't want to be parasitic.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's becoming a culture where you have to be that. And you have to rent things to people that can't afford it, and you're going to have to kick them out. And I don't want to be a part of that. So moving to commercial, where I have these warehouses and mostly retail centers, what I like about it is I get to be a mentor to these people, help them grow their businesses, watch that, be a part of that. And plus they make more money, so they're more likely to pay rent and more likely to make better decisions. And you're dealing with a different class of a person. So like a lot of the drama and tearing stuff up and all that goes away.
I didn't know you completely exited your residential.
So I didn't completely. I tried to completely, but
Still got Skillman.
I still no, I'm glad I don't. But I still got a house where it's in Corsicana, and this lady lived in it with her entire family. And during COVID, her dad died, who was the only person that paid the bills. She immediately went and got 2 jobs. She's been paying for her entire family, and like she made no excuses. While everybody else in Dallas was like, "Hey, wait until my unemployment comes," she was like, "Hey, I got 2 new jobs, and I don't want something to happen to somebody that tries that hard."
Yeah.
And so I've held on to that house, and I went pretty heavy in mobile homes, but not because I care about mobile homes, because I care about land. And I've always tried to master this way to make income off of land. I've talked to people that had cattle and grew lumber and all this different stuff, and really couldn't come up with something that really sounded like it made sense. And then I started buying these mobile homes that would be on like 3 or 4 acre tracts for 30,000, rent them for $1,000, and I was like, "Oh, this works."
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of that. It's all right. I'm not loving it. I mean, commercial has definitely been more fun, but I got to be somewhat diverse.
Right. So I find it interesting because people hear commercial and they think that's too expensive for me. People hear multifamily, they think that's too expensive for me. I think a lot of investors even hear, owning rental property versus flipping or wholesaling, and they think, oh, well, I don't have enough money for it. Could you maybe talk about some of the things you've learned during your career that helped you kind of bridge that gap and really look at kind of the long game versus the short game?
Well, the number one thing that really opened my eyes to it was understanding value add. Um, like I understood it before I even knew what it was. I was just like, hey, I could buy this and I could do more. I didn't understand there was a cap rate and that would like triple the value of it and all that. But yeah, once you understand value add, not just for properties, but for businesses or anything in general, that's huge. That's substantial because then you learn how to margin a lot more than just interest rates. And that was a big game changer for me.
Well, I think to that point is like in single family, you're driving for that appreciation, but like what you're talking about is you're driving towards like multiples, and like I mean it's essentially the same thing, but it's not, because a multiple is obviously what it sounds like, and appreciation is like, man, I got 5%, woo. So
Well, it's also kind of understanding what drives your valuation and then finding other levers you can pull, right? Like I've always said, like in residential, there's 3 levers. There's what you pay for the house, which is largely determined by the market. There's some skill in there, but if a guy's getting offered 200 grand, you're not going to get it for 100 because you know how to like do a circle on a piece of paper, right? Like it is what it is. There's what you spend on the property, which I believe that's probably highly under focused on. Like a lot of people ignore that. And then there's what you can sell it for, which is largely determined by what you spend your money on, right? Like, and that's what he's saying is like on these multifamily things, like adding some amenities so that you can increase rent, so that you're not thinking of it at that point as $100 a month. You're trying to apply the cap rate to that and then multiply, right? Like it's not linear, right? There's a point where it skips exponentially.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I would say like the most eye-awakening part was where I saw that a syndicator bought an apartment complex in Richardson, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to raise the rents $50 a piece," and I'm like, "Why are you going to change out all the appliances to stainless steel just to get $50 in rent?" It was like, if I do that, with the change of the cap rate, it ended up making like a $1.8 million difference in valuation. I'm like, hold on, wait, what? So, it
Was that Hudson?
I don't know. This was a long time ago, but he didn't even really break it down for me. He was just explaining like how much more is going to be worth. So I went to, there's something like Wikipedia, Investorpedia, and I looked up and did a lot of research. I'm like, all right, what are cap rates? And I read on that 20 times until I understood it. And then it'd say another word. And I went and read that 20 times until I understood it. And then went to YouTube and like skip past all the guru stuff and the people like really trying to like explain it. And I was like, just had like a mind blowing light switch that turned on. And I had already owned my apartments by then, but I only knew that I bought them for a good deal because it was the price of a house. I didn't understand cap rates and all that until like I was in the demo stage. And then later on, I was like, hold on, I can make over $2 million profit on this, which I did. So once I did that, that's pretty eye opening. And I like that with commercial, like the only thing that is controlling the value of that deal is me. Am I going to go find the right tenant? Am I going to put the work into it and all that? I'll say, interest rates plays a little bit of it, but I'm the biggest driver as far as like, with the residential stuff and the single family, it's a consensus of, comps and things like that are going to decide the value of your property.
Right.
What's your favorite, or do you have like a favorite like anecdotal story of like going from like a 10 to a 5, and what did you do to make that happen?
Well, as far as the cap rates changing, the biggest thing that I can do is like Trevor Turnbow. I'm sure y'all know who he is. His family was selling a triple net property, and they were trying to sell that thing at like a 6 cap for a really long time. But, as a title loan company, they're kind of more of like an at-risk business. They'd been there 30 years. I made him an offer for half of what he wanted. I ended up buying it with a 1031 exchange at an 18 cap. And so all I did was own it for long enough that it paid for itself, for me. And then turned around and asked what Trevor was asking. I sold it in 30 days. And, just sold it at a lower cap rate. I didn't even need interest rates to help me. But right now with interest rates high, this has really murdered the evaluation of a lot of these properties, because there's properties out there that are worth $30 million that are now worth $5 million. And solely because of interest rates. Nothing changed. Same tenant, same rents, all that. And that's why I keep expressing to people, I'm like, you have no idea what's actually going on behind the scenes of these people. So during COVID, I went like head first. And the first year I bought 19 commercial properties. Now I think I have 40 something. Haven't really like made a good count of it, but I'm about to once property taxes come out. But
It's always a good time to take stock, right?
yeah, but if interest rates come down, not even to 3% again, if they even come down to 5, like I'm gonna do so well, so amazingly well. So,
Yeah.
like I said, a little bit of luck and a little bit of like putting myself in the position to be lucky.
You still taking care of your grandma?
I am. It's getting a little bit harder because she keeps changing the input on her TV on accident, and so I go there every single day to fix her TV that doesn't work.
Yeah. These smart TVs can be very painful.
Yes.
And the amount of you were talking earlier, and this is like so not related, but like the amount of people that chase seniors and try to scam them is just. My mother-in-law, we built a house behind our house for her, and it's just every day she comes in. Well, they said my Walgreens order, my card got declined, and you're like, well, wait a second, did you order anything from Walgreens? No. Okay, well, we'll start there. And so I've got a special place in my heart for people that take care of their family. Yeah.
I had to tell my dad, I was like, and I'm not saying he's stupid or anything like that. He is smart, still working. And I'm like, I know you're not as technological savvy as I am, but I almost fall for some of this stuff too. So like, if you see something digital, just assume it's fake. Assume it's because I get texts like Amazon has a. Wait a minute, why are you texting me for this number I've never seen before? Why don't you just give me a notification on my app?
Wait till AI gets more into play on this, because now they got all these free AI stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody could take your voice off this podcast and call your dad and be like, "Hey, send me $200."
Yeah.
It is wild, and I did just do that thing where I completely changed the topic of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about, I mean, is as a lender, and in the real estate world, it's complicated. I mean, we actually have to run. I actually renewed my cyber insurance today, and it's just like, holy crap, like the cost of it. But we're dealing with people's social security numbers, bank accounts, large $1 million transactions, and it's a big risk.
Yeah, if you want to do a startup, cybersecurity is the startup you need to be in, just because of that is going to be the biggest growth sector that we have.
Yeah, I mean, even like even faking wiring instructions, and then even rerouting calls and answering and validating. Like it is just such a moving target right now. As someone that moves money, it's difficult. Speaking of that, data centers, commercial real estate, how you feeling about that? Is that a play you're interested in?
I do like data centers, but I think most of them are going to own the ones that matter. Most of them are going to own their own space.
The ones
You know,
that matter.
like Facebook, they're out here, they're buying their own land, building the whole thing themselves and keeping it.
And getting all those tax incentives to employ like 5 people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's 80 jobs. It's like, no, you don't get to count the construction workers that are only there for 2 weeks. Like, it's like a janitor and a guy to check the central heating area every day. Like, that's it.
Yeah, but I really like, if you count it as data centers, I really think the Bitcoin mining stuff's a big play. Not for so much the Bitcoin stuff as the fact that they're just so much money is going towards that. They're buying like massive amount of land, and the land that they can use, nobody understands as much. But I've done the research. Nobody understands how few places these can be, because those huge power substations, they have to be next to those, and they have to be next to ones that can do crazy amounts of power that you can't imagine. So I spoke to somebody that worked at Mara Holdings, which is a large company, and they were telling me that they needed, like, I don't even know what the word was, but it was 500 like gigawatts or something, and he was like, there's only 4 places that they found so far in Texas that you can even do that. And they said the next move for a real estate person is just to call electric companies or whoever and find out which substations can handle that and start trying to buy land around it.
I think that's a smart play, because it's similar to like Mac Lawson's thing from way back when, which was he would buy like if he found out Jerry Jones bought something, he would just buy something across the street,
Yeah.
So I think, to your point, is with that Bitcoin mining world is find exactly what you're saying, because that is very true. Like
the most important part is it's limited. It's not like McDonald's where you can put one every 5 feet from each other, or like when I went to Houston, there was literally 2 Starbucks looking at each other. I'm still confused by that, but it's so limited anywhere in the United States where you can put these things, much less a place like Texas where they're very friendly towards those kind of businesses. And it works same with solar. I've seen where I live in Quinlan, they're popping up solar fields like left and right, but they're all touching substations. So that land around these substations would be a good buy for somebody that's buying land.
And you could probably buy it cheap. I'm assuming. The only reason I say it is because like one of our clients has a facility out in like an hour north of Pecos, which is the middle of nowhere. And I mean, it was like west of Odessa, north. I mean, you're closer to the New Mexico border than you are to civilization.
It makes you want to call Encore and be like, can you tell me where the next substation is, and would you like me to buy the land and donate it to you?
Yeah. You're going to have to, so somebody want to do it. I've done all the homework that I don't think anybody's done. I reverse engineer it backwards from what even the mining companies are trying to do, because they're not real estate guys. And, they're hiring brokers, which aren't even real estate guys, no offense. But
offense taken by them.
But I would, if it were me, I would call ERCOT, and I would say I want a whole list of every substation that can do this. And then, maybe like down to 400, and then another list for 300. And then I would start, land gliding the land around that, do some mailers, cold calling, things like that, and see if I could get some stuff under contract with like maybe a 1-year option, and then go try to pitch them out.
It's interesting is it's almost like if you took the idea of like a landman with oil and gas, but instead of oil, you're just like access to that substation.
Surface rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually, I mean, I know that's a great thought.
But I did all the homework for the whole thing. When I was at a Bitcoin conference in Nashville, I heard somebody talking about Farmersville, and I was like, hold on. And the guy that worked for this mining company is from Farmersville, so we've been talking about different things and possibilities and stuff like that. But I'll throw the juice out there because, no matter what, everybody's going to figure it out here soon enough.
Yeah. Well, Corsicana, they got that big facility.
Yeah, Riot's out
yeah.
there. It's huge, and they're about to turn it online. It's the biggest mining facility in the world, so that'll be fun.
Man, there is this power station right in between like Wichita Falls and Quanah, Texas. What is that, on Highway 82 or whatever? It's where all the windmills in that area meet.
Yeah.
And there's a massive substation there. Check it out. I'm too busy for that shit, though.
That's
all right.
Jason McDougall territory.
He was here about an hour ago.
Was he?
All right, so that's your opinion on data centers. I know you said you're big into Bitcoin, but not crypto. I'm going to switch, and you run a Facebook group that has 50,000-ish people in it for DFW real estate investment. It is the most well-run, savage group I've ever been a part of, which is, I think, why it's so popular and so effective. What made you start the group, and why do you continue to deal with it?
Well, I didn't start the group. I got it on a value add deal. So I'm sure you remember Steve used to run it.
Steve
Glasgow.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I thought he owned it.
Yeah.
And then one day I looked and I saw that somebody else was admin of it. I was like, that's weird, and didn't hear anything about it. I'd asked Steve a couple of times. He didn't say anything. And like 2 years later, I saw Steve started his own group, and I was like, messaged him, like, why would you do that? He's like, I just want to start fresh. And then I looked, and he wasn't a moderator on there anymore. So I messaged the lady, and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm just changing some things around. I'm like, you want to sell it? And she was like, I'll take $5,000 for it. And I was like, I'll give you 10. And everybody I know was like, you're a freaking idiot. People, all my friends, were literally the whole way driving to Texas Speedway, which is where I met her. They're cussing me out, telling me like you're spending a bunch of money to show off, and this is stupid and all this stuff. I'm like, y'all have no clue. And so I ended up buying the group, selling sponsorships, as you know, doing a lot of things to where I could put myself kind of on a pedestal where people know that I do commercial. And so a lot of people are coming to me first when they have deals for sale. I mean, I've already made way more than $1 million from that. So that was definitely a value add play.
Where did you get the thesis for it, though? Because, like, you're running it, like, super tight. Like, I mean, it's like one of those groups, like, no promotion, no spam, no guru shit. You're going to get called out. If you don't answer getting called out, they'll kick you out. Like, where did you decide all that?
Well, one, there's way too much Wild West going on in real estate. And a lot of that runs off a lot of people that could stay in the business. A lot of people join and it's their first deal and somebody steals their $50,000. A lot of things like that. When I first bought the group, like I immediately started reconsidering afterwards because I was like, oh man, 9 out of 10 posts is a contractor. Like, and I didn't really start paying attention to that till afterwards. And I was like, I can't even find deals because there's so many contractor posts. And so I was like, for now on, no contractor posts. And then later on, I was like, okay, well, if I say, if you're a sponsor, you can make a contractor post. That'll get rid of all the crackhead handymen that are going to scam you or do a bad job. It gets rid of like the spamming where it's literally 400 posts a day. Yeah. And it puts in people that can afford to actually buy their materials, probably finish the job. And they got some skin in the game because they have to have 100% feedback. So if somebody burns somebody, they're out, no refunds. And so just kind of put some orderly to the whole thing. And, another big thing that I changed was nobody ever put prices on anything. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. And
for sale, how much? I won't tell you.
A lot of it was different wholesale companies, like their own trick was like
ghost inventory.
Yeah, just to kind of get contact information. I'm like, well, that might be good for you, but that's really bad for the group. And plus, I just got annoyed where like people are like, "How much? How much? How much? How much? How much?" And he'd comment to the eighth guy, $100,000, and then nobody else looks and sees that, and they kept, "How much? How much?" And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So I started putting rules like you have to have a picture. I don't care if it's a screenshot from Google. Like I get it, you don't always go there.
Take a second
Yeah,
though.
got to
and-
have a picture. Got to have a location. Doesn't have to be the address, but at least let us know like around where it is, and like try to sell this thing. Like some people don't see the bedroom count, the bathroom count. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what if MLS was like that?
Right. Well, I like it. I mean, it's and actually kind of funny. Recently, a guy went on there to blast Ternus that actually wasn't even our borrower. That one of your moderators texted me. He's like, "Hey, dude, this doesn't seem like you, and you want me to take it down?" And I was like, "No, not at all. Like, why would I want you to take it down? Let me read it." I go on and read it, and as a lender, I can't really say anything about the file, but I got more business off that person trying to trash me because of the way I replied. I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry for your experience. We did the best we can. Obviously, you're not the borrower on the transaction, so I can't discuss things. If you want to get the borrower to come on here and waive all rights to privacy and confidentiality, I'm happy to respond." And it was funny, like, people then start bashing the moron because he was basically saying that his relative that borrowed,
He threw the dirt out himself.
the loan matured
Yeah.
and was up for extension,
Yeah.
and he was very mad that I charged extension fees.
Yeah.
So you were going to do the thing that you said you were going to do in the contract.
It's literally in the note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's in the note.
literally a week before that, somebody was out there throwing another lender under the bus because they got foreclosed on, and I'm like, I understand that's upsetting, but
Yeah.
like that's a part of the deal. We all know that's a part of the deal, and you would think if anything, you try to be hush hush about it.
Funniest thing you did was buy a McLaren, and only because it's like as anti-Jawad as I can think of. Like, you're not about flashy things.
Yeah, but I didn't go out and buy a McLaren. Like I want to be clear about
Well,
that.
I want you to tell the story.
So-
it's funny, and people see you in it, and it's just so not you, but it's so you.
So I've only driven it like 20 times, and other than my birthday, like a month ago, I probably hadn't driven it in 6 months. But somebody hit me up, which happens often, that has a lot of money, and they were hitting some hard times, and they were like, "Hey, I need to borrow 10 grand." I immediately lent the money. Like even, that wasn't Donovan Ruffin, but even Donovan hit me up the other day, and he was like, "Hey, my bank's closed. Can you send a wire for me, and I'll pay you back tomorrow?" Like, got you. I met him at the bank like in 5 minutes. Like, it's common that we hit each other up when we need it. And
I need to write that down. Call Jawad for money.
yeah, if you could pay me back. But 10 grand, no problem. But then the next day he was like, 10 grand's already gone. Like, I need another 10 grand.
The McLaren guy, not Donovan.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And no, Donovan was just trying to send Ernest, and it was not a big thing. But it was another 10 grand, and I was like, "Hey, like, why don't you tell me up front what you think this is really going to cost? Because if you keep coming at me, like, you're going to make me very nervous, and I don't want to do that." And he was like, told me some number, I don't remember what it was, 80 grand or something like that. And I was like, "I'm not lending you that, but I'll take something as collateral." And he had a bunch of supercars, and he was like, "What about the McLaren?" And because he thought about selling it, and I was like, "All right." And he's like, "All right, give me 200 grand. I'm like, "I'm not doing that because I don't want to buy a $200,000 McLaren. Like, if you want to borrow this 80 grand, give me the McLaren, and whenever you pay me back, you can have the car back." "All right, I'll have you paid back in 90 days. Well, that was the plan. 90 days later, I hadn't been paid back $1. And then a month after that, I got paid back 10 grand, and then immediately borrowed that back. And so I realized that wasn't going to work out. So I had another value add play where I had a McLaren now that I didn't want to own, and driving it was real cool for about 2 weeks, and then it wasn't, because you have to valet it, and they still don't protect it and stop fat girls from sitting on the car while you're gone. And a lot of haters out there, people rubbing like bubble gum on it and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. And like, To be honest, I got a Tesla and I like it just as much. So
Well, last time I saw you driving, you were like in a Ford Ranger.
yeah, I still got it. I drove that here.
It's
my favorite.
like, and that's why people that don't know him, I'm like, that's just a McLaren's, not Jawad. Like it's just not. Like,
Right.
It's like me. I drive a Ram 2500. Now it's not old, but I would feel so uncomfortable sitting that close to the ground. Like I'd never drive the damn thing.
Yeah, I learned there's no sexy way to get out of a McLaren. There's not, especially with the door going up.
Yeah.
You literally get like there's a
fall out.
hump. There's a hump taller than this to get out. So you're getting out and you're like getting on the ground and you're crawling like a
And you're a
dog.
tall dude, so your
Yeah.
legs are up under the dash. So there's just no way to.
So you got to crawl at least like 3 steps before you get out. And so, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't watch me when I get out.
That's got to be.
Watch
a
me get
skid.
in, not get out.
Yeah. That's got to be a skid or
She
something.
goes to get out and she's just like, can you like get a blocker so I can like not flash the world? Yeah.
But I mean, I don't have the truck because that's my brand, or I feel like that's me. Like I don't care about things. I don't even care about the truck. I have it because it makes me money. You know, I'm in real estate, and there's a lot of times where I show up at one of my properties and there's some random pallets in there. I'm like, well, crap, I'll throw it in my truck.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of times my guys call me and they're like, hey, we need a fridge here right now. They can't wait for me to have one delivered in 3 days. So as many times as I say I'm going to be Jason McDougal and drive around in a car, like I'm sure you've seen the pictures where he's got like lumber sticking out the
Yes.
windows of his car.
Yes.
So I talked him into getting his truck. I was
Oh,
like,
did you?
Yeah, I was like, you can't keep doing that if you're going to grow.
Well, I mean, I drive a truck, but like there's a trailer hitch attached to it, and I haul trailer. Actually, that big house I have in Rockwell, that historic house, we had to pull the whole aluminum roof off yesterday, and it's like a $60-something-thousand roof we're putting on because we went back with Galvalume on it,
Yeah.
and all the neighbors hate it, but I love it because it's better and lighter weight for the house, so it's better for the structure. Anyway, point was, I hooked up to a gooseneck yesterday and drove a dump trailer over to the house because all the roofers wanted to pull the aluminum shingles off and charge me for tear off. And I, like you can have all the money in the world, but if you start throwing it away, you'll never have it. Start calling around, and it's probably $7,000-$8,000 worth of aluminum up on top of that house.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, bro, like I'm not paying you for tear off. Like, I'll bring my dump trailer over. I'll pay you the labor to have your guys put that in there.
Yeah.
So I've got a dumpster with like $8,000 worth of aluminum shingles in it today, hooked up to my other truck, and we're gonna figure that out tomorrow. I don't know where we're gonna take it. I mean, I called one guy, and I feel like I'm getting ripped off.
I feel like the historic people would probably pay you more money than a scrapyard would if it's still reusable.
Oh, it was just beat to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, the hailstorm that came through, like it already had damage, but like it was that one that was like baseball size in
Yeah.
Rockwall, and it literally every time it was awful.
Did you get insurance to cover it?
Yeah,
All right.
a lot more than the $60,000 I'm paying.
It's been another play that I've been doing a lot lately with these commercial properties. When I get them under contract, I have the seller do an insurance claim and then assign the claim to me. And on one that I bought in Fort Worth, I ended up getting $150,000 from that.
People don't know how much commercial roofs are. Like they are a lot, and the profit margin is high.
Yeah.
I got one buddy out in Rockwall that does he subcontracts for another one of the big brands out there, and they pay him $10,000 a week to go sit on the commercial jobs. We'll fly him to Denver for a week, give him $10,000 plus all of his expenses, and that's just so the owner doesn't have to be bothered with going to supervise the crew. I mean, it's like I told my buddy, I was like, dude, like I'll do that. I can do my conference calls from anywhere. I'll go sit in my truck and just pull my laptop up, and I'll take an extra $10,000 next week.
Yeah. And I would say like every part of my business has been evolving because while doing that, like my contractors, I have in-house crews. Like I have some subs, but most of the time everything we do is in-house. And I'm sure everybody knows, like, you used to have some crackheads and, some other people that are real flaky and stuff like that. And now that I'm doing much more production, I need people I can rely on.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for the cheapest price. I'm looking for the guy that's going to show up and get it done so I can make my money. And really valuing the time and value. So now we've got a lot better guys and show up every day and, do a great job and spending double on construction costs, but probably not actually in reality when you don't have to keep redoing things, if you know what I mean.
Where do you think that comes into play as an investor, like the evolution? Because Tim has talked about that in the past. The Ternus is like, we're not the cheapest, but we're gonna win on customer satisfaction and service. But I feel like as any level of business, you get to a point where you realize that cheap is not always cheap.
Yeah, I did learn that a long time ago, and I think the first place that I learned that was a lender, because there'd be a lot of people leave you hanging at closing. And then I started learning, like, sometimes, like, it's better to spend money to make money, and that played through to contractors. So that way, I want people that are going to show up and get it done so I don't have to be there all the time babysitting every day. And I've got multiple projects going on right now. Yesterday I went to one for the first time, and my guys had been there for a month, and before I couldn't do that. I would have already been there over 100 times.
Right.
So it lets me be more places, do more things, and raise my production numbers.
One of my VP of origination last April, we had like a monster month, and he's like, Tim, we've got to get more adults in the room. And I liked the way he said that, because he wasn't referring to the age of the people that work for me. He was talking about experience and competency. And since then, I've brought on a chief operating officer and a chief strategy officer, and we're hiring a chief financial officer. And I was sharing with someone, like, the executive team at my company, it's a line item that, it has 2 commas. And he was like, you hiring? But the point is, I've been doing this since 2 o'clock today, and we've got loans funding, and we've got customers being taken care of, and we've got situations being resolved. And I have highly competent, trustworthy people that allow me to do this. And I think what you're saying is, obviously there's phases, right? We talked about the phase where you had an extra $50 at the end of the week as a plumber, and you went and bought 3 tiles and went and put them in and went to bed, right? Yeah. And was scared about that, and you cried when you made your first flip. And now you're talking about a blind offer, $250,000 cash, and on a commercial strip center that you don't even know who's going to fix what or what needs to be fixed.
Never seen it before anything. And I see that in the group too, because like there's people that'll be on the group, and somebody will be like, hey, I need a plumber, or I need a painter or something, and there's always like 4 people that are like, you don't need to pay somebody for that, you could do it yourself. And I'm like, maybe people don't want to. Like, I don't do my own plumbing. Like, you get to a stage where I could go do that, and I could save $1,000, or I could go buy 3 more properties and make $1 million.
But here's the question: how bad is your plumbing company if you can't find someone else to do it for cheaper? And here's what I mean: a friend of mine owns a very large plumbing company in DFW that was sold to private equity, and he still has a partial interest in.
Yeah.
And when he and I were talking about it, and he built a multi-million-dollar home in the DFW area, and he did not use his company to plumb the house, because he has his business running so efficiently, the cost of pulling those trucks out of production would have actually cost him more than saving the money on his own residence.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, you talked about it earlier, actually, it's kind of that time value of money concept. I get into it a lot with me, because with all the experience I have in construction, I grew up working on houses, and then I flipped so many houses, right? You just kind of can solve any problem. And oftentimes it becomes like a struggle with me and my wife. She'll be like, this is wrong, can you help me? And the propensity is to say yes, right? Because it's my wife, and it's my business, and it's my houses. But when I'm working on a $500 issue, there's a $5 million issue I'm not working on, right? And so people have to. It's been an evolution for me as a leader, as an entrepreneur over the last several years, saying no to things. I'm not saying that they're beneath me, right? But
It's expensive.
the result of my time is much more impactful working on things that can be done. Really, if it wouldn't cost me like $1,000 an hour, it's really better for me to let someone else do it. And then the farther you get away from it, they're probably doing it better if you hire a competent person.
With the exception of property management, I agree. I have tried every property management company, and they knocked my NOIs down 50%, and I thought they were just doing a terrible job for a lot of money. And so we do that in-house, but everything else, we subbed out or automated.
Yeah.
And we mostly automated our property management. Like, it's so easy now, which I learned from other property management companies. I'm like, how can y'all be terrible when there's so little to do these days? Like, it's so automated now, it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, even us with the servicing, we insist on handling customer interaction, but the entire back office is outsourced.
Yeah.
Like, someone's setting up ACHs and sending the NSF report or the success report or whatever. Like, if it's not automated, there's someone that can do it a lot cheaper than someone in Texas.
Yeah, our CRM sent me a thing today. We had one NSF, and I was like, this is from the lady with the nail place. Like, she ain't never late or miss or anything. And I called her, and she's like, oh, I had somebody hack my account. We made a new account. I forgot to tell y'all. So we turned off the auto pay, switched the account, turned it back on, done. And I was like, things can be a lot easier. I watched these people, like, in the group this week. Somebody was like talking about taking Zelle payments, and I'm like, that's not the way I would do it, because for the $200 more you could pay to have a good CRM, like, I don't have to look to see if somebody paid. Whenever they pay, it automatically takes them off the list. If they are late, it automatically tacks on their late fees. Like, it automatically sends out the eviction notices on the 4th. Like, I don't have to do any of that stuff. And a good part of that is I don't have to hear, like, oh, the check's in the mail, or, even one time back in the day when we used to take cash, we found out somebody had received cash and left it on an envelope on the desk. We found 2 months later. Like, we got rid of all the chances for error.
Yeah.
Which CRM are you using now?
We use Buildium, but we build it out a lot. It's kind of like Podio or anything else, where it's more about what you put into it.
It's called Buildium?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's interesting. So, it's funny you said, I won't take Zelle, but I love to pay with Zelle.
Yeah.
Because I can put a memo in the Zelle, and like, it goes directly to the accountant, sees it in the download transaction. She knows who it was to and what it was for. But I won't take it because that same thing. It's now I have to, like, take a screenshot and send it to Jackie or what's her face, and
then
like,
somebody's got to type it in and all that stuff. Like, we don't have to do all that. It even has its own built-in bookkeeping, which is just like QuickBooks, like, real simple, and it auto puts everything because it learns. And so you just got to go through at the end and, click your 10 buttons. And, like, our entire bookkeeping is done in probably like 15 minutes.
Yeah. And even like we switched recently to a commercial treasury account at Texas Capital, and sending batch ACHs is, I think that's how we pay you, right? Or do you draft our ACH from us?
Y'all go back and forth.
Yeah. Like, I love to send batch ACHs. I mean, you remember back in the day when your bookkeeper would print that stack of checks, and you had to sit there and, like, sign them and review the invoice. And
I used to do that for you.
I know. But, like, now it's like, it's using technology is, I don't even want to say economies of scale, because people out there hear that and they're like, oh, well, I'm not big enough or whatever. Like, it's such a force multiplier. Like, if you'll just research and buy into the technologies that are out there, you'll avoid those time restrictions, and it's like having extra employees.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with McDougall, about how, like, if you get stuck in this hustle grind mode, and you're not pausing to plan ahead or pausing to research or pausing to see what is a more efficient way to do this process, you're always going to be stuck in that hustle grind mode.
Yeah, me and McDougal meet up once a month. We're actually meeting next week. I wish I would have known that we were both coming here. I probably would have rescheduled that to today. But as far as like that CRM stuff, it's not just real estate. Like with my plumbing company, we use the same CRM that Baker Brothers does, your buddy that you were talking about. And, everybody talks about how great this very expensive CRM is. The base price is $1,500 a month. And we got it. And I was like, well, this isn't that great, but you have to like build into it. And now I've got it so automated. If my guys with the plumbing company that I own, if they go out and they show up to a shop or to a job and they want to replace a water heater, they click one button. And people forget to charge for stuff. I've had guys replace the toilet and they forget to charge for the toilet. I'm like, well, that was the main thing. Yeah. And so now they
charge
click
for the wax ring.
They click one button and it like puts everything. It puts the median average of labor, service charge, the gloves down to like a screw. Like because I put all the things that somebody's forgetting, and it even pays them their commission and things from that because it automates it all. And we got it on the last year was the first year we used it. We had a 300% increase on our net from using that alone. Yeah. And that wasn't just from charging more, but spending less time because we'd spend an average of an hour per job, building out these estimates and invoices. So
it's like a hidden cost of inefficiencies right there.
Yeah.
Well, because and then he knows how much each truck is worth per hour per day. Like, that's the magic, right? And I'm actually surprised someone hasn't taken a CRM like one of those like Service Titans or whatever and adapted it for our business because not our business, like the real estate kind of wholesaler house buying business because, well, I guess mainly because they're too cheap to use it. But like if you're sending your buyer out there and it sends a text that says, "Hey, Miss Jones, here's Ryan. He's on his way." Hey, and then the deal, you punched, you're done, and then it sends the follow-up text. Hey, Miss Jones, how did Ryan do? Give us a review or whatever. It's like all these automations. Even your dentist can use it.
Well, something that you just said about the every screw over there, that makes sense for like cost of goods. But even for like my business, literally in this room, there's hundreds of things that I've bought that don't get used because we forget we have them. And it's just like how much money has been wasted on inefficient use of equipment. But like if I build where it was like, hey, we use this, and maybe it's not a surcharge, but maybe it's just more for accounting purposes of, hey, we bought this $50,000 camera, but we've only used it 3 times. Well, that was an expensive camera. But if you buy this $50,000 camera, but you've used it 500 times, well, then that was you made a good value added out of that.
Yeah, like one of the big things, not to keep talking about like plumbing, but
we should.
I saw we spend $7,000 a year on latex gloves, and they wear latex gloves on every single job. Some of them they double them up, or if it's a sewer job or something, they're tearing them and replacing them like every 5 minutes. And I was like, no plumbing company I've ever heard of ever charges for latex gloves. And so I have in there where like on every job it charges for those. And so now we took what was a liability and turn it into some income. And that's been something that I've been doing not only with my businesses, but in real estate as well. Is I've been literally trying to take every single thing that's a liability and at minimum try to neutralize it. If not, try to turn it into some income.
I think there's lessons from the medical world because that's what, they charge for everything. If they go in there and say, hey, good morning, they're probably going to charge you for that. So, line item everything, I think, is a good way to go.
I learned it from the tater tot. So I read the story about how the tater tot was invented, and it's because they were making French fries, and they were spending millions a year paying people to haul away their scraps. And somebody that got hired as a new CEO was like, man, how do I, reduce this cost of these millions of dollars of scraps? And so he invented the tater tot and then turned those millions of dollars of liabilities into an income. And I started like immediately first thing I did was I was like, how do I implement this into everything in my daily life?
There's a book I recently read or listened to on audiobook, The Fish That Ate the Whale, and it's basically about the banana republics down in the South America. But the guy that did all that in the early 1900s, his claim to fame was he saw all these bananas on the docks rotting, because the United Fruit was just like, well, there's no point in shipping these up north because they're already going to rot. But he was like, well, can I buy those for cheap? They're like, you're going to buy these? They're useless to us. We're going to throw them out. And I think he got them for free, or maybe he got them for cheap, or maybe they even paid him. But he was able to find a market where he was able to take these bananas and resell them where they couldn't. But to your point, though, it was an asset that was previously a liability, and he was able to make money. And then he was able to change, South American politics for 100 years.
So I think, it's kind of funny. Sometimes your morals, convictions, ideas of the business may keep you from doing some of these things. Like, I know you care about, like, not feeing people to death and blah, blah, blah. And I do too. And I'm very cognizant, because especially as real estate investors, they're the world's cheapest millionaires you ever met in your life, right? Well, recently I wanted to have just a flat fee, because as a customer, I kind of hate doc prep, legal fee, this fee, that fee, wire fee. So I tried to have just a $1,995 closing fee. And it was funny. People would ask me to negotiate down on it because they didn't see the value in it.
Yeah.
And then I started adding up, like, we were paying $3.99 for the documents. That wasn't a line item fee on there. Then I told my COO, I said, don't tell anyone. Tell the closing department. Start adding the $3.99 doc prep invoice to the HUD. 2 months go by, not a single complaint, not a single pushback, because people are used to seeing that, right? Just like when people buy something, they're used to seeing a parts list, right? They didn't see you as trying to get over for them on the gloves. They see a $5 charge for gloves. The man's wearing gloves.
Makes sense.
Paying for the gloves.
That's what happened the first time somebody argued one of our invoices. They're like, this seems high. And I was like, well, let's look at the invoice together and you tell me which part is high. And that's what I love about how we are flat rate, but we don't put one price. Right. We still break it all down. And I was like, you point out to me and you tell me which part you feel is high. And he went back and forth and he could. And I was like, there you go.
Yeah. But then also, to your point, on his automated fulfillment of all the parts, if you went through and really did that, it's not about helping you know what you have. It's about helping you adequately bill your services. Velcro straps, tripods. Like, when you say, I'm going to go shoot off site, by hitting this button and understanding how many cameras you want to take, it could say how many surge protectors, how many tripods, how many lights, how many Velcro pieces, how many extension cords. I'm just looking around the room we're in, right?
That's just this room, yeah.
Yeah, and how many mic booms and how many sublights, and it would build it all out, and then you're not negotiating a price with me to come shoot.
Right.
You send me a gear list that's, like he said, I can't say, well, I don't need 3 cameras. I need 1. And I could say that, and you'd be like, awesome. You just need to understand it's going to be 1 wide-angle shot today. Well, no, I need the close-up on him, so that's 2 cameras. But if there's going to be 4 of it, like, you see what I'm saying? And then it's, cameraman, $450, or whatever the number is. I'm not, like, trying to set Ryan's prices here. The point is, at that point, I'm asking you to come shoot remote for a day. Trip charge. You said you called that a service charge, right? Trip charge. By being able to quickly calculate it, you need to take 2 vehicles. So you should charge 2 trip charge, right? Overtime. It's this far away from the office, this much gear, this much shooting.
Yeah. And to
that's
all that,
what I see in what he's saying.
And but to that, and I'll be very transparent and eat crow. The reason I haven't done all that is because it's so much time and effort to actually build that out.
And I think you spend all that time and effort on everybody else's. So I've seen that. But I would say how I learned to charge for like the service charge was, we all know this one person. I'm not going to say his name, but he owns a construction company, and he really wasn't doing well a couple of years ago. And I was like, look, we've been friends for a long time. I'm going to come look at your books and see what's going on. And before even digging through his books, I looked at just the buckets, which is like the main things, like, just your GLs. And I was already like, whoa, hold on. How is one of your GLs for uniforms $75,000? And she was like, well, every time we hire somebody, I spend $800 getting them on a uniform. Some people don't even show up. And then some people, work here a week and we fire them, things like that. I'm like, every other construction company subs this stuff out to like UniFirst and things like that. It costs $7 a week. And then they take it out of the person's check. And I'm like, this guy lost money that year.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, UniFirst will give you lockers, show up, drop off fresh pressed clothes, pick up your dirty clothes, wash them, come back the next week and do it again. They'll supply your toilet paper, your paper towels, everything. And like, even if you got the whole max where they did your toilet paper, your coffee, all that, it comes out to like $15 a week a person. And so we did that, take it out of their check because it's stuff that they're using. And I'm like, that's $75,000 where this guy took a loss. And I'm like, you could have made an actual salary that people make just off of that one alone, this one GL. And he didn't take a lot of my advice, but he did take advice on that. But yeah, there's a lot of things where I didn't even have to like dig through and look at every itemized thing. And I'm like, how does this make sense? Like, that's not right.
I think the key is what you're talking about is you never asked your salespeople for permission for that. Because what happens too many times, the entrepreneur is like was the original salesperson, and they're always thinking like the salesperson. And the salesperson never wants to charge anything for anything and wants to get paid extra for everything. Like that's just, that's sales. But if you don't look at your line items and you don't look at your cost centers, oftentimes more is less profit. Like, and people don't understand that because it's you don't always have economies of scale or force multipliers. Oftentimes, if you do too much of one thing, it actually starts becoming less efficient, therefore costing you more money and more time. And I think in the lending world, it's never more evident than a processor, right? So a processor can handle about 100 files a month. So if you have two processors and you're doing 50 files a month, your cost per closed loan, processing wise, is astronomical. Once you get to 175 loans, your cost is way low, like half. And so oftentimes entrepreneurs don't do a good job at understanding their cost, their per unit cost, right? Like for you, I would say, what is your cost per reel that you publish? That would be my question, because until you know that, you don't know what to charge for it.
Right.
And until you know what to charge for it, you don't know how many to offer. Because given your staff, if you offer 3,000 a month reels, but you only have the staff for 2,500,
yeah,
you start paying overtime for the additional 500.
Well,
therefore lowering your profit per unit on reels.
Yeah, the cost of goods sold here has been a 5-year learning experience. And it goes back to what we were talking about before about being the sophisticated owner. I can't say words today, but like it's being an entrepreneur is always just a learning. So I always applaud and jealous of people that just like fall into success. First of all, there's no such thing as falling into success. There's that perceived, like what we were talking about earlier. I was sharing with him that there was somebody who was like saying, "Man, Ternus came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Tim came out." I was like, and I was sharing with Tim, is like, you mean the guy that's been working at it for the last 15 years? That same Tim? Oh, Jawad just has 40 commercial, man. He got lucky. It's like the guy's been doing it for 20 something years, like that overnight success. And I'm sure even with me, it's like, man, Ryan came out of nowhere. This media company is like the guy that's been eating shit for years to get there. So, success, it's a journey.
Before we wrap up, what's the stupidest thing you've seen someone do in your Facebook group?
Present company excluded.
No, you can use me.
Okay.
Oh man, I'd say there'd be like a pretty long list.
Look at him smiling.
He's like, who am I going to put on blast?
I've seen a lot of things that I just couldn't believe. I've seen people sell things way too cheap. like some of these strip centers that I've gotten. I've seen people list things incredibly high. I have seen people spend 10 years to build a reputation and throw it away to make $1,000. And to me, that is on the top of the charts of stupidest things you can do, because reputation is everything. I mean, it can make the difference between an introduction. It doesn't even have to be directly. Like, I don't have to do a business deal with you. It could make the difference about whether or not you tell some commercial guy to talk to me, as opposed to somebody else in commercial. You know, you just decide which guy you like better. And I mean, I do that. I decide that all the time. So I would definitely say reputation is number one.
And so on that, oh, go ahead.
I would say one of my favorite things with this podcast with him is we recently had a guest on, and who I referred him to somebody like a year ago. And before I referred him, I was like, hey, had a handshake agreement about a referral fee, because it would have been like a $50,000 plus referral fee. And, you know, it was Bitcoin related. We'll go there. And after I made that thing, they did a deal, and I was like, hey, cool, I'm glad to see something worked out. And he's like, and I was like, and I basically was like, when am I getting my check? And he's like, what check? I was like, what do you mean, what check? We had an agreement. He's like, oh, we never signed anything. I was like, what about all these emails, all this thing? He's like, oh, well, we never agreed to anything. I was like, oh, okay. So I waited my time, and then when we saw this person, I just basically, hey, they're still going to do business, but I at least felt better that I got to trash this guy in person.
Well, I am super quick to sue, so if I had anything in writing, I would sue. But the one thing that makes me think about Corey Thompson all the time is he taught me the number one thing I can't forget. The most destructive thing, he told me, the most destructive thing that I could do to somebody is just no longer be a part of their life. And I think about that once a week. And I agree with that. Like, I don't have to hurt them in any way. I just no longer have to help them. And I have watched that tenfold on a lot of people. And I think about that a lot. And I think it was a great thing.
So, dumbest thing, building a reputation and then tanking it over nothing, or tanking it in general, I think. What is a lot of our listeners are active on social media. A lot of them are getting started, or maybe just growing. What's some good things you see people doing in the group that you think leads to business, personal growth, friendships, capital, etc.?
One, paying attention to what people want and then connecting people. Even if you don't like get a kickback or something from it, a lot of times it does pay forward, because they either want to bring you in the deal or they offer to kick you back next time on their own to make something like that happen again. I would say really just any way out there. I've learned the more positivity that you can put out there, somehow it pays off, unless you run into the people like you're talking about. There's some people that are just always trying to get out from under people and cut a corner, but the world figures out who those people are real quick. So I'd say just the more good you put out there, the more ways that you find to help somebody in any way, even if you're not directly getting benefit, it pays off.
So I'm going to summarize: be honest, do good.
Yeah.
So basically, be a good person.
Yeah, and then market the shit out of yourself what you want, and people will find out. I've got a friend who is like wealthier than almost everybody in that group, and he was like, nobody reads my posts or responds to them. He's like, Jawad, you got 308 likes and like 1,000 comments on this post. He's like, I posted that I wanted to buy stuff and not a single thing. And I'm like, it's because nobody knows who you are. You're not being loud enough. And like, don't be rah-rah loud, but let people know.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you want to buy something in Richardson, post once a week consecutively. I buy in Richardson, because there's people I have no clue who they are, and I see them post the exact same thing over and over. And I know in the back of my head, if I find a deal in that area that I don't want, that's who I'm going to. And it might be a year until that happens, but like, be consistent. And like, branding is not something that happens fast unless you're a Kanye West. Like, It's something where you got to throw out there, spread your seed and let it grow. And people try to say one thing and try to be heard and try to be, memorable over it, and that's not simple. Like, you got to make sure people know. And I always had houses, and like when I started buying commercial, people didn't care, so I had to like make it very clear I'm the commercial guy, and people are starting to learn that. But I also had that problem when I was a plumber, because I had already owned like 7 houses, and when I was with my friends, anytime we met somebody, even if they were in real estate, they would be like, yeah, he's a plumber. I'm like, hold on. I own a plumbing company, but I also have 7 houses at the time, way back in the day.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't picture me that way. And I'm like, this is a real estate person. Like, this is how I need you to like make them think of me. And so it takes a lot to get people to think of you like that. But I learned that because one day on Facebook, a really close friend of mine posted, like, does anybody know a plumber? I was like, I see you every day, and I own a plumbing company. She's like, I totally forget. Like, it's not what I thought of. And like, I get it. It happens. I was like, never again. Brandon King after that.
Right.
Like, people are going to know everything I do.
I use that analogy a lot as well, as because like realtors, their biggest pet peeve is like when their family friend uses somebody else. It's like, it's because if you're not constantly telling people what you do, they will forget.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you do for the group, for the Dallas-Fort Worth community. I love the business you run so much that you told me there was a lender sponsorship open, and I sent you a Venmo or Zelle or something. I don't even know what I paid for. Like, I literally was telling Robert the other day, I was like, hey, we sponsor this group. We should really figure out, like, what the hell that means.
Well,
but it's just, I respect the group so much that when the limited opportunity came available, I said, I need to take advantage of this.
Yeah.
And I'll figure it out later.
Yeah, it's less than what somebody would spend sponsoring 6 meetups that would probably get them in front of maybe 4,000 people, maybe 300 people 6 different times. And, this puts them in front of 50,000 people. So I thought it's good, and I limit it as far as spots because I don't want it to go back to, like, being spammy again as well. And, like, I'm pretty rigorous about knowing what kind of people are, posting in there, because although, like, my name's not on it, my name's on the group, and,
we all know it's you.
Yeah, I gotta protect that because, like I said, that reputation's a lot.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you coming in today. It means the world to me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next week.